Wow. I don't know what's going on with your system, but I'm looking orange. I look like I just went to Trump's school cosmetology. Hey everybody.
What's up?
It's John and Rob, part of the Heroes World Sidekick podcast. And yes, I know we might be a little bit late. Lewis, you might be correct in that John did break the internet once again.
I'm having issues.
Yeah, and you're always making me and Mike.
Sidekick Show.
John.
So anyways, yes, welcome to the Heroes World Sidekick Show. I don't know how much John is going to is listening or can participate, but we have a what I think to be a pretty slam-packed, action-filled show for you tonight. So thank you to everybody who is tuning in, whether you're on Facebook Live, you're on YouTube, or to those who are listening afterwards. Thanks so much for your continued support, and obviously we welcome your comments and your feedback. And especially your criticisms and thinking that we're not doing the 80s action movie bracket properly. I just want to clarify, sure, everybody, we do consider RoboCop and Predator to be action movies from the 1980s. We are just doing them in a side bracket. So I just wanted to clarify because there's been a little bit of confusion or discussion or with respect to that. So John is going to try to figure out. That's right, Lewis. It is back to the Rob Show. John's going to try to figure out what's happening with this. Right now, we can't share with you our current bracket as it stands. But a couple things I wanted to go over. I guess, John, do you want me to just hit the news while we wait for you?
Yeah, hit the new. Well, new release wise, the comics are going to be here on Wednesday. We're into week 3 of the Future State stuff. I was going to mention the Die Hard products again, but I guess let me try and resolve this, and you hit the news, and maybe after the news is done, I'll be able to get this back online.
Sure. Just as an aside, though, before I do hit the news, I see that Tim Baratis, who's a friend of the show, who has been on the Heroes World podcast 2 weeks ago with part of your Cobra Kai recap. I'm going to say I'm on the record to both of you saying that I had a really tough time getting into Cobra Kai. By the virtue of my son pretty much forcing me to watch season 2 and part of season 3, I'm completely invested in this. I think season 3 is far superior to the other 2 seasons. But that's just my take. I'm only halfway through, so I just wanted to give an update on that. So let's hit some news as the things that have been going on the past weeks, and maybe some big announcements, things that maybe everybody's already talked about and heard. You don't want to hear about anymore, but too bad. So Spider-Man 3 news, John. They are currently filming. I want to say New York, but I don't think it is. I think it might be in Chicago. But they're doing it like with snow. So there's some live video footage of Tom Holland dressed as Spider-Man. He has the same outfit from Far From Home, but it looks like he's got a lot more padding in his arms and his shoulders. So look at how. Why is it so? So at any rate, it looks like it'll be like a Christmas time setting. There's also rumors that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be reprising his role as Mysterio. Apparently, Tom Holland's brother, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but apparently he was spotted on set filming as well. I didn't realize that he was an actor. So the cameras are rolling. They are going forward with the Spider-Man 3. It is taking place, at least it looks like, over a holiday period. And we all know that they've had Homecoming and Far From Home. So maybe this one would be called Home for Christmas or Home for the Holidays. I have no idea. We talked a lot about Zack Snyder's Justice League and, the debacle of everything that's been going on with that. We did a big announcement and a review about this announcement that he was finally getting a chance to redo his Justice League. We did that last summer. You can go back and check out those past episodes. But there's been every like couple of weeks, always more news and more tidbits about this. We are getting towards the release of this thing finally. I feel like it's like pushing the boulder uphill. But it's going to be March. And so we knew that. We're like, okay, great. We're looking at March. Well, we just found out Zack Snyder has confirmed through his Vero account that it is not going to be a 4-episode series, 4 one-hour episodes. It's going to be one large movie. I don't know what changed. I don't know what happened with Warner or HBO Max to change it, but it's now going to be a 1 4-hour extravaganza releasing sometime in March. And for those of us in Canada, I don't know what that means for broadcast for us. We may not get it because of the really weird agreement between Warner, HBO, and Crave. So I'm not really sure whether or not we will have access to see Justice League on Crave TV. However, rumors are that it will also be released on Blu-ray in March. So I guess there is a silver lining in the event that if we don't get to see it up here, then I guess we can have an opportunity to purchase it through Blu-ray. And then I'm assuming, obviously, video on demand in March. Speaking of Justice League, Ray Fisher, and this thing's been going on for months, and applauding Ray Fisher for really spearheading this investigation into what he deemed to be abusive behavior on the set of the Justice League reshoots when Joss Whedon came on board. Really called out Joss Whedon, called out Jeff Johns, and also Walter Hamada. Now, you may remember just 2 weeks ago, Walter Hamada's contract with Warner was extended to include as a president of DC Films for the next 5 years. And Ray Fisher said, I unequivocally will not work with Walter Hamada whatsoever on any project that he is spearheading. Well, that's resulted in Ray Fisher being written out of the upcoming Flash movie. So he apparently had more than just a cameo role. I think it was almost like a co-starring role in the Flash movie, and he's no longer going to be involved with that. So I actually quite liked his portrayal of Vic Stone in Justice League, and I was really looking forward to seeing more of him, and I guess we will in the Zack Snyder's Justice League. But it's too bad that he's been written out of the Flash movie, but that's just the way things, I guess, are going in Hollywood. But he's still continuing the fight against Warner Brothers and against DC. I'm going to flip it over to MCU Disney Plus news quickly. Ethan Hawke has been cast in Moon Knight. No clue who he is playing in Moon Knight, but the internet nerds have spoken, and they seem to think it's Dracula. I'm not going to lie, I had no clue Dracula was part of Moon Knight, so that's interesting to me. But, whatever. As soon as I heard that, I thought of, like, Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost in Blade, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to get that vibe, but whatever. Also, Chris Evans, that was a huge news at the end of last week. Chris Evans has re-signed with Marvel to do something with the MCU. Number of projects, could be 1, it could be 3, we have no idea. Chris Evans seems to be putting a little bit of shade on that, saying, I have no clue what you're talking about. But I'll tell you what, if you want to know what Stu, John, myself, and Andre think how you could reintegrate Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, or Captain America into the MCU, you can listen to our podcast. It's uploaded early. Instead of coming out on Wednesday, it was uploaded yesterday. We review WandaVision. We answer some questions such as what are we going to do with how would you integrate Chris Evans back into the Marvel MCU and a whole bunch of other things. So that was a lot of fun. So you can definitely listen to that. And actually, the one last thing I do have to say is breaking tonight, and nothing's been confirmed yet, but supposedly CBS owns the CW, and they own about 50% share of that. The other 50% is owned by Warner Brothers. There's a big rumor that just got released about 2 or 3 hours ago that CBS is looking at ditching their CW shares and essentially giving all of that to Warner. What that means is that all of those DC television shows that have been under the CW banner are going to be heading over to Warner's. So that I think is pretty significant because that could really increase the HBO Max subscription service. It could also pump the brakes on a lot of shows that we have grown accustomed to. I don't think you would see people wanting to pay for season 8 of The Flash, let's say, when you can get it for free on their cable package. So that's news. I don't have any real other information on that move right now. It's just speculative, but it seems to be gaining some traction. So CBS looking to ditch their ownership or 50% stake in the CW, and that will have definite ramifications on the Arrowverse going forward. And it looks like John is back.
I'm back for now. I had to go run and grab another computer. So fun times. It's been a fun week for me. Thanks for coming, Rob. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. Yeah, what happened? No, I'm just joking. Rob.
Yeah. Okay, let me go over this.
Rob.
Yes.
Have you ever met anyone you haven't killed yet?
Well, Murtaugh. It is early. Fairly certain.
I haven't killed you yet, is what he says in the movie. All right, so
Yeah.
do we want to kick into the movies, or did you get to the comments? Probably not, because you're flying solo. Let me see.
Yeah,
if,
I apologize if I was kind of going really quickly on through that, because I was just, I mean, I had nobody to play off of, and I didn't really see much. I saw that Tim was saying it's impossible to pause. You must watch all 4 hours straight. So obviously he's talking about the Justice League. I'm fine with that. I would sit and watch all 4 hours. That's fine. Oh, Scott, you don't hear the squeaky chair? You're not. There we are.
That's the squeaky chair. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, again, sorry we're late. You might not have heard earlier. I like everything is going wrong with me this week. Like I
and it's only Monday.
I got a brand new loaner computer, and it literally just stopped registering the network card. It just said no, there's no network card in this computer. So I don't know what the hell's going on. So I had to grab another one. Rob took over, so it was all Rob. Rob show.
Yeah.
Lewis says he hasn't bothered with Cobra Kai yet. I think Rob was mentioning earlier that he hasn't finished season 2 or season 3 yet.
No, season 3. So hey, Lewis, you know what? I get it, and I'll be honest with you. I watched the first season back, I want to say almost in the summer or fall. It's taken me a long time to get over to season 2. It wasn't hooking me. I wasn't getting that hook at the end of each episode for me to want to go on to the next episode. My son, who's 12 now, he really wanted to watch it, and I said, fine, I'll watch it with you. He blew through season 1 in like a day, and now we're halfway through season 3. It's interesting, though, John, he loves the show. He doesn't recall watching the first Karate Kid movie with me. I showed him maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. He kind of watched it on his own yesterday, actually, because I'm only able to watch like 1 or 2 episodes a day, just based on time, right? Because it's just on time of things that are going on. So he watched Karate Kid number 1 on his own. We're halfway through season 3, and I am quite enjoying season 3. I do like it quite a bit. I find it to be a lot more fun than the first 2 seasons, but that's just my opinion. But it's great kind of watching it from hit, because we're watching it, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but there's obviously a lot that ties into at least the first 2 Karate Kid movies thus far. And so there's an understanding of a pre-context that you and I or Tim or even Lewis would get, not a 12-year-old kid who hasn't really watched the movies or grown up with that, the idea of the pop cultural icon, that is Karate Kid. So it is pretty cool to see him watching it and just laughing and enjoying the show as much as I am, maybe for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. I was wondering on how that we should have like an interview with him or an interrogation with him to see how the show works for the younger viewer that doesn't have any attachment, because sometimes so we're going to be back tomorrow to talk Cobra Kai season 3. Me, Tim, and my brother and my good buddy Duncan, because Rob is not caught up on the series, but otherwise Rob would be there. So we're going to talk about it, and it came up in our conversation. It's going to be weird for kids that haven't seen the old ones, that have to watch the flashbacks in the show. Does that mean anything to them? Are they going to go back and watch Karate Kid? It looks like your son did. Is he going to watch Karate Kid 2, 3, and next Karate Kid as well? Like it's.
I think he would watch 2 and 3, to be very honest with you. I think there's the impetus that, especially halfway through season 3 where I'm at right now, it's very heavily plays on Karate Kid 2. So I think he's an episode that we just saw is really influenced on number 2. So I think that spark has now kind of intrigued him enough that he would probably watch. He'd probably watch episode 2. The second movie. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm very interested to hear if the later beats in season 3, when you get to them, are going to mean anything to him. But let's kick it. Are we going to kick it 80s style now, Rob?
Oh, buddy, since we're talking Karate Kid, then yes, let's go into our 80s bracket. I gotta say, it's been a heck of a lot of fun catching up on some of these movies.
Some of them are questionable. So I feel like we should next time we start one of these brackets, we should be like, okay, we're gonna get to the recommendations on maybe the ones that we know for sure are very clear in our memories and are good. And I grabbed the wrong bracket. I've got the wrong bracket here. Let me see here.
If anybody is on Facebook right now, if you go on to I think it was your link today, or the Heroes World link, on your link today, you actually have your post. you actually linked the actual bracket itself, so people can on their device they can watch along if they wanted to follow along.
So let me attempt to add it here. Everything's been going wrong today, but there we go. I believe that's it.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. All right. So, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking 80s movies. We're trying to pick our best 80s action movie, and there's a couple of stipulations. We have eliminated the fantasy sci-fi genres, and some sports movies that weren't classified as action. So stuff like Rocky, and Top Gun didn't make the cut because it was a drama action or something. I don't know why we.
Wait,
why
which
did we
one? Sorry,
Top Gun.
which because it wasn't really an action movie as much as it was like a fighter pilot, drama. It was kind of considered more of a drama. We just didn't because we didn't include Iron Eagles. We just those two movies were just kind of fighter pilots.
I think we wanted muscle fueled bullets, explosions,
fighting,
one-liners, that type of stuff. So I'll go over what was in the bracket. For you audio listeners, I've got it on the screen here if you guys can see it. I don't know if it's going to be too small or not. Die Hard versus Missing in Action. We immediately moved Die Hard forward in that one. Sorry, Chuck Norris. Lethal Weapon versus Roadhouse, which I think we should definitely talk about today. Commando versus Black Rain, which I feel like there's a clear winner in that one. Bloodsport versus Cobra. This one was up for debate last week, so we'll get to that today. Beverly Hills Cop versus Red Heat. We automatically advanced Beverly Hills Cop because there's no way that's not getting towards the final. And then following it, the bracket right under, we have Beverly Hills Cop 2 versus Rambo First Blood 2, which is interesting. We're going to talk about that one today, but we potentially could have a Beverly Hills Cop versus Beverly Hills Cop 2. So that's interesting. So these last couple ones, we were able to move them along forward pretty quickly. Lethal Weapon 2 versus Tango and Cash. Lethal Weapon 2 takes the lead on that. Above the Law, Steven Seagal. I think one of the only Steven Seagal movies that takes place in the 80s, or he did during the 80s.
Yeah, this was the only one he did in the 80s. Everything else was 90, 91, 93, so on.
Yeah, I was trying to find my copy of Above the Law. I've got like 2 copies of Marked for Death. And I'm like, this is the wrong era. I need to find my... And I possibly don't own a copy of Above the Law. I have like a Under Siege and everything like that. And so it was Above the Law versus 48 Hours. We've moved Above the Law forward. 48 Hours, it does pioneer the kind of 2 buddies working together that shouldn't get along. But Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, we feel, don't kind of represent the 80s action hero. Eddie Murphy, I think, does do it in Beverly Hills Cop, but I think 48 Hours, he wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Like, I don't know if anyone in the comments wants to talk. I think last week I had technical issues, so I don't know what's going on. I'm on a crap streak right now. But I remember Scott had mentioned the last time he saw Cobra was in '86, which is when the movie came out. And I was saying that that's kind of a testament to maybe that this is not rewatchable. So I tried to pop it on, Rob. I don't know if you got a chance to get to it.
No, you know what? I actually tried to find it through a number of different streaming services. I'll be honest with you, I just didn't want to pay food. I even tried Tubi, which people had recommended. That has a lot of shit on it. I'm surprised that this is not on there.
It has a lot of oddballs. It had Van Damme's Lionheart, which is going to be in the 90s, and a couple other weird ones. But Cobra, I popped it in, and the intro is a lot of fun, and then it just kind of flails out. So it's not quite. Yeah, it's not quite there. I think it's maybe the script. I think it's an old script, if I believe, and it was kind of kicked around a bunch of times, and then it finally landed on Stallone. But it's going up against Bloodsport, and I feel like Bloodsport, the representation of one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's best 80s movies. I think he had Cyborg. Tim mentions Iron Eagle. He was in a movie called Black Eagle, I think.
No, Tim's making fun of me because I said Top Gun and Iron Eagles. And so Tim is saying...
No, I know Iron Eagles is the name of the movie, but I think Van Damme was in a movie called Black Eagle, which is available probably on Tubi, which I don't recommend watching. It's pretty bad. But Bloodsport, the pinnacle kind of... I don't know if it was the originator, but it's the best representation of dudes getting together and fighting in a tournament.
Well, do you think it's fair to say, though, that Bloodsport was probably the most important movie for, like, the most important martial arts movie since Enter the Dragon? Like in terms of its hype and its cult following. Like I'm not saying it was an important movie that helped define a genre or whatever, but I think in terms of its like following, like people really, and maybe I'm wrong.
I think if you're talking about North American movies, I think it is, because Enter the Dragon is technically a North American movie, I believe, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
we
it was
might
in
have to look that
production.
up.
It was in production. It was a produced movie. But yes, obviously, I mean Chuck Norris in it.
Yeah, because you hit other movies like Five Deadly Venoms that are cult classics, and 36 Chambers, and the Jackie Chan Drunken Masters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but I feel like those are all subtitled movies that are actually originally Asia movies or something like that.
Right, and so that's why I was kind of. I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective like from North American. Like I think that Bloodsport was probably the most hyped martial arts movie. Nothing else had really been that hyped since Enter the Dragon. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah. You had stuff like people did suggest us put American Ninja on the list before. I have tried to go back and watch those, and I couldn't get into them. So if anyone wants to talk about those, definitely let us know. And Kickboxer, I think, is another one. It is from the 80s, but it's not nearly as good as Bloodsport. I actually say Kickboxer is actually quite bad of a movie, other than a couple moments. But I don't know. Like, I think we can probably move Bloodsport forward, unless anyone really wants to make a case for Cobra.
So to going back, I couldn't find Cobra anywhere. I watched a number of the trailers. I did watch this maybe within the last 10 to 12 years. So I know that's a long time, but I remember at that point watching it, remembering what I was like when I was younger watching it and going, oh, this isn't as good as I remember it being. Like I found it to be really boring, and nonsensical. And as you said, it was an older script that they just never really, I think they just used it as a quick, in no pun intended, as an easy vehicle for Stallone, right? Coming off of the Rocky stuff. So yeah. I'm good with Bloodsport going. I think Bloodsport is way more. Yeah,
and I definitely recommend. You could definitely watch Bloodsport. I feel like it's only like an hour and a half, 20-minute movie. Yeah, which can be easily summarized by anyone who watches it. Bunch of guys fighting. So what about let's talk Commando and Black Rain for a second. I think you were going to do some recon on Black Rain. So I feel like there's no way we can't have any Arnold Schwarzenegger representation in the finals of this bracket. So
just as this is weird. I remember my mom when she was like in the 80s, like she was dating somebody and they went and saw Black Rain in the theater. Like I remember, and that was my first like, oh, okay, Black Rain. And then I saw it on First Choice. If you're old enough, remember the movie network was First Choice. And I really liked the movie. I enjoyed it. I think I owned a copy even up to maybe 15, 20 years ago. I was like, oh, this is great. I lost it, typical for me. So I just downloaded it off of iTunes. I paid the $10 fee and was like all hyped to watch it. This is a Ridley Scott movie. Michael Douglas, doing his Michael Douglas. It actually reminded me like he was trying to do an impression of Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon. New York cop, him and Andy Garcia. And, it doesn't hold up, man. Like I was really surprised. There are beats in that movie that are really good for like a Ridley Scott movie. I'm like really hyped for it. There are certain beats throughout the movie, certain action scenes. I'm like, oh, this is great. But the movie as a whole, there are moments where I kept picking up my phone because I was starting to get kind of bored. And that's never a good sign. Like when you watch these movies countless times as a kid, and you're really hyped and excited for it, and you can't hold your it took me 3 days to get through the movie. That's not good. Now I did do a little bit of research, and I'm not gonna. I don't remember the all the actor names, but it's interesting. The main villain, he died. He was only 40 years old. He actually died 3 months after the release of Black Rain. He had bladder cancer, and he didn't tell anybody during the filming of Black Rain. It was kind of crazy. So, I just did research because I was so bored of the movie. I started looking up all the different actors.
Let me find something. I think this movie has a really cool poster.
It does.
Which is like I think he's got his arms full. He's got the glasses, and I think there's like a
he's
bunch
sitting
of
on his motorcycle.
maybe swords and sparks and stuff in the background. And then you watch that trailer, you see the guys dragging the swords across the floor, and you're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. But I think it's going to be a similar problem like when we're going to talk about Rambo, the lack of humor, right? Like these movies taking themselves too seriously for that time maybe is the reason why they can't be watched now.
Yeah, and again, so as I'm watching it, I was thinking to myself, I feel like they're just doing Ridley Scott and whoever wrote it, I don't remember, their version of like, oh, I want to be Lethal Weapon, I want to be Die Hard, I want to be that dark and gritty action movie, the cop movie. I mean, here's the problem: as I'm watching it, and so they arrest the head of the Yakuza or whatever he is from the Yakuza, their enforcer in New York, and they're tasked with extraditing him back to Hong Kong, or to Japan, sorry. But the problem with that is that when they land, listen, you don't get to hang out in Japan. Like, you sign the papers, you hand them, and then that's it. Well, then, something happens and it causes them to have to stay in Japan and go hunting for this guy. That would never happen. So right there, like, I'm watching this going, that's not how these things work. This is ridiculous. Like I'm out. Like it bothered me. So I don't know why, but that minute detail just irritating me. And you know what, John, you brought up a point in a private chat to me, and you were just like, about the Asian stereotypes. And
yes, I was going to bring that up next. If you notice,
okay, so go ahead.
If it was there, yeah, I was going to say I watched an old episode, the first episode of TNT, which is the Mr. T show, where he's a lawyer.
You love that show, and I don't understand.
I remember that show so clearly when I was a kid. But I watched the first episode. They fight a bunch of. They don't mention exactly what they are, but they're kind of like Japanese gangsters. Right. And then their henchmen run around with nunchucks and ninja stars, and I'm like, this is pretty racist. and they end up killing guys with like ninja, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. So I don't know if any of it was that was my concern with Black Rain, because it looked like it's very Yakuza, Japanese gangs. And I think this is before a time when they kind of started portraying those things kind of accurately, like the typical Russian villain or whatever, when they went very stereotypical. So yeah, go on, Rob. About
so I had just said to you is that I didn't think that they did it in a way, the portrayals were disrespectful to the Japanese culture, but I'm also coming at it from a white guy's perspective. So what do I can't speak to that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if somebody else is watching it saying, you know what, that's kind of bullshit what they were doing and saying. I kind of felt that the movie was trying to make the two Caucasian guys fools, fish out of water type story. But I don't know if I can't, maybe, and that's an inherent issue, I guess, that I have. I couldn't tell if you can tell when something's being a parody and they're making fun of somebody and when they're not, but those subtle nuances, maybe there were, and I didn't recognize it. So all that being said, watching the movie, it just doesn't hold up the way I remember it. And even though my memory of that is only like a few, 15 years ago, right? And even still 15 years of memories, and they obviously they betrayed me. So I wholeheartedly agree with you that Commando has to beat Black Rain. For me though, I gotta admit, I was kind of surprised because I held Black Rain in my brain at a higher level than it actually is. Yeah,
I remember not really thinking big of Black Rain back. I remember that poster was hella cool. So I suspected that maybe this wasn't gonna be able to. Sorry, my mouse is all over the place. What the hell? All right, cool. So we moved that on. Oh, actually, why did I close that? Yeah, so we moved that on. All right, so let's jump down to here. Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Rambo First Blood Part 2, which we did not pick the first Rambo because it was a little too
dramatic. And somebody mentioned that, John. They said, where is Rambo First Blood? And maybe I miss...
I know. I think Jonathan Yo, what's up, John? Mentioned that no way that Rambo First Blood gets kicked out first round. But I don't know if you've seen this recently, because I dug up my DVD,
I loved it.
my DVD trilogy of Rambo 1, 2, and 3. 3 has never been opened, by the way, so I don't know what happens in 3.
Wait till
But
the 90s.
2,
The 90s, it'll be open in the 90s.
yeah. For 2, I did watch like at first I was gonna try and watch it on streaming, but I think you have to sign up for Super Channel or something like that. But it shows you a trailer, which is not really a trailer. It takes like a 5-minute snippet from, I don't know, someplace in the movie. I don't know who picks that or whatever. But it actually looked pretty cool. It had Stallone there. It had whoever plays the Colonel there, and it had the guy who plays John Kreese in a room, and they're kind of talking about the mission, and Stallone's just really stoic and kind of like, they're like, you're going to go in and you're going to take pictures only. This is a recon mission, and then come back, and Stallone's just like stone faced the whole time, kind of like, and then he kind of looks at the map, and you can kind of tell that he's gonna do something. And I was like, oh, that's a cool way to play it. But he plays it that way the entire movie, just like a brick. So I don't know what and that movie, you can basically watch the last 20 minutes of it, and it'll give you all those memories. So the memories and the things that this movie created, it created a toy line, a cartoon show, I believe, and just a whole culture. Rambo, the knife is a I think it's still referred to as the Rambo knife. When I was a kid, I had the plastic one with the compass in the handle. I had the fake Buddha necklace. Like I was like really into Rambo, and I was like, when the hell did I watch this when I was a kid that I got into it? Because he does straight up murder a whole bunch of people at the end.
Yeah.
Which is like interesting to watch when it gets down to the wire, which is literally only the last 20 minutes, where it's like, oh, Rambo is going to take on an army, which I guess is where all this terminology comes from, of one man just defeating everybody. But other than that, it was extremely slow. A lot of people talk about like the sound was really bad. So I don't know if maybe the editing or whatever. Like I know, like explosions and stuff like in 80s movies don't sound quite as muted as this. I thought maybe it was a victim of the time, but the other movies that I watched, like Beverly Hills Cop 2, definitely have sound that just kind of goes like pops. But this Rambo, for some reason, it didn't quite pop as much. So I don't know if it was a cheaper production or something like that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this particular movie, Rob. Did you have the Rambo knife when you grew up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had that's why I said the compass never worked, because it wasn't a real compass, right? It was just a thing that spun around on like a little spindle. I mean, it was horrible. No, you're right. Listen, Rambo 2 and Rambo 3 really helped push Rambo 2 really helped push the iconography of Rambo as a character into the pulp culture lexicon. The First Blood movie didn't do that. It was a good movie. A lot of people, critic wise, looked at at First Blood as a great movie. It had social. We talked about this a few weeks ago when we were deciding about what movies to put in. It's not an action movie per se. It's more of a drama with action elements. Rambo 2 completely changes that. It goes right off the rails from what the first movie was. It's a rescue mission. It's much like it's very similar to Missing in Action. So he, as you said, he's tasked with going in there and trying to rescue Vietnam POWs. I was about to look it up. I think was it the Cannon Group? Was it a Cannon Group production? Because that would explain the I think it was like what would be considered a low budget movie.
I think they did spend money on it, but for some reason it just doesn't like I'm trying to look at what year is Rambo?
Well, First Blood Part 2 is 85.
Yeah, 85. So it is the same year as Commando, but I feel like Commando pops way more in the FX department. And the Rambo looks very dated because sometimes he's crawling in the ground and stuff like that, and you can tell it's just like they built like a muddy stream in the back of some lot. So I don't know if he shot it on location.
Well, yeah, it's not. Again, it's one of these things where I don't know if it's a product of us just getting older, and we're looking at things through the lens of now, people in our late 30s or early 40s or whatever, or in Tim's case, in your 50s. I don't know if it's just, if our memories are just, lying to us. But Rambo First Blood Part 2 it's a I mean, it is slow, but in actual time, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. So it's a relatively.
It felt really slow, and I think
that
is because what we mentioned earlier is the lack of comedy. There wasn't any kind of like one-liners to break it up.
No, they try to be serious.
Yeah, one of the main characters actually dies, and it's very sad. Scott mentions the whole scene where he seals his wound with the gunpowder. I don't actually know if that was two.
That was number 3.
Yeah.
I just watched.
I remember from Hot Shots.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of these scenes from Hot Shots, like the whole like he's getting his arrow ready, and the guy's like machine gunning like right in front of him, because it does happen in the movie that he's like the guy who kills the female character in the movie is shooting at him, and Rambo's screwing on one of his explosive arrows just standing there.
I know. Yeah.
Well, actually, he's just on top of a rock.
Weird Al Yankovic actually did a parody of this in his movie UHF.
Where maybe I'm mixing it up with that.
Where he gets up there and everybody they're shooting. It's like, and he's just standing there and he's screwing on the thing and he pulls it back and everything's exploding. He's like, whoa. Yeah, so whatever, man. Rambo 2 it is what it is. I don't know. I don't know if it's better though than Beverly Hills Cop 2. I guess that's the difficulty.
I think it is, because Beverly Hills Cop 2 has the humor. It has a lot of more fun characters. He's got Judge Reinhold, I think, or whatever. Rosewood, and I forgot who plays Taggart. It's got Gilbert Godfrey in a scene, which is really hilarious. Like if you don't feel like watching the movie, definitely watch that clip where he's got parking tickets, and he's like, "What can I give you that you would hold in your hand and forget about these things in the other hand?" Like if you were holding, like this, and you'd be like, "Oh, I don't like that." Like just for scenes like that alone, I feel like Eddie Murphy does go a little over the top. Like I guess he had hit some success, and maybe they were kind of giving a little bit more freedom, because he just goes crazy. He just goes full out into, if you've ever watched Raw and Delirious, he starts basically just going into material.
Yes.
From those like he kind of does a little bit in Beverly Hills Cop 1, but it's not as to the extreme as Beverly Hills Cop 2. But But Beverly Hills Cop 2, it's got Tony Scott, so you got really slick looking action, a lot of like angles, cuts, kind of things like that. And you got the music, you got like a kind of like Motown infused with I forgot who writes the Axel Foley theme and stuff like that. But you got a lot more going on in that movie that is way more good at kind of keeping your attention than Rambo.
So Beverly Hills Cop 2 for you was a lot more fun. It was more fun,
for sure,
and more of an enjoyable watch than Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yeah.
As an action movie, though, is Beverly Hills Cop 2 a better action movie, or is Rambo 2 a better action movie?
There's a lot more set pieces, I feel, in Beverly Hills Cop 2. There's car chases. There's, Eddie Murphy drives a Ferrari. Even like the Ferrari doesn't do anything. He just drives it around.
Right. Yeah,
and takes it to his boss, and it's like, I'm leasing this car for an undercover or whatever, and that's it. But it's a cool scene. He gets in the Ferrari and like starts weaving between traffic, and then they get like a cement truck, and they start driving like Rosewood get the cement truck. He's like, this is the best thing you can find. He's like, and then they just wreck tons of cars. So I feel like there's more going on. There's lots of things exploding, glass shattering. Like there's all kinds of stuff going on that kind of alone will keep you occupied if you don't care about the story. But I feel like I don't know, maybe there's something to be said about kind of like war themed movies. Maybe that's a whole nother genre, like, because I know some people might say, oh, you know what, Vietnam War, like Platoon, all those kind of movies like are great, but I don't know, I feel like I don't enjoy watching them.
Yeah, fair enough. You bring up an interesting, and it's something that I think we're probably going to have to talk about as we get into next week's brackets with like Lethal Weapon 2 and stuff, and even Lethal Weapon, I guess, for tonight. But when you have action movies that have a comedy infusion, does that elevate that movie? And because it makes it a lot more fun. So you're right. Tonally, Beverly Hills Cop 2 is great. Right? It's fun. It's got the action. It's got the fast pace. It's got everything you're looking for. Rambo 2 is some would consider a classic, or a much more classic action movie where it's just guns, muscle, mayhem, blood, and guts. So I guess it all depends on the people who are watching. What type of action movie do you like? But I think, John, I would be comfortable with Beverly Hills Cop 2 advancing over Rambo.
Yeah, I feel like we're like the theme. If when you look at all these movies, the theme, aside from Above the Law right now, is going to be there's going to be action with comedy infused, which I feel like is an 80s thing, like over the top action with the one-liners, and kind of like a little bit of a, comedic jokes kind of thrown in there to keep you interested and keep these kind of characters not necessarily grounded, but I don't know what would you call it, believable or watchable. Sorry, Mike, this site always has issues. But let's move Beverly Hills Cop up, and then we only have one more thing to talk about. Do we want to talk any more about Beverly Hills Cop and Rambo?
No, I think we're good with that. I mean, listen, it's a tough round because you're taking two diametrically opposite, which I know is redundant, movies and pitting them against each other. And that is kind of the fun aspect about doing this bracket, is that they are just so different, right? Again, you've got a comedy infused action movie, a cop movie against a war, rescue, guns ablazing, bombs, grenades, rocket launchers. Like he's using that rocket launcher. They are two completely polar opposite movies, both good for what they deliver, but one just is a lot more appealing than the other.
Yeah, I think the problem is maybe the new Rambos. Like Jonathan Yo already says that's crazy. So I don't know if he's rooting for more Rambo action, if he's watched it recently. But one of the kind of key elements of Rambo was the whole idea that he gets to take all those guys down. But it's kind of silly by today's standards. Like he takes arrows and shoots guys in the head. But you can clearly tell that the guy already had an arrow stuck to his head, and either they reversed the footage and like pulled it off of his head or whatever. Right. But it looked pretty bad. So I feel like it was replaced by that newer Rambo where he gets to like eviscerate dudes.
So Rambo 4, I think the last Rambo that came out, Last Blood, is atrocious and will never appear on anybody's list unless it's the worst movie list. Rambo 4, where takes place, I believe it's in parts of Cambodia and stuff. Yes, you're right, John. He eviscerates people. That's when he's got the machine gun. People are being torn apart in half. But a lot of that though was all CGI blood. And so when you watch it, like it's all CGI stuff as opposed to like more practical effects. But it's a lot more gory and violent. But because it's easier to do that with CGI blood, right? So
I think anyone that thinks that everyone, I don't know if I would recommend, but if you rewatch Rambo now, it's a little ridiculous. There's a point where two boats collide, and then and then instantly when the boat touches the other boat, it goes kaboom into the biggest explosion
for no reason.
And to get away from it, Rambo just jumps in the water, and then he's all good. Yeah. But okay, so enough of that. Let's go on to this. This I feel like is our main event for today, because I'm going to leave this mostly on Rob's shoulder because he's the most invested in this matchup here. But we would have Lethal Weapon from 1987 versus Roadhouse from 1989. So Lethal Weapon starring, of course, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and Roadhouse starring the legendary Patrick Swayze. And I forgot what his... is that who plays his buddy, the older buddy? Yeah, that guy's friggin' awesome. I watch him in Justified, and he's one of my favorite characters. And I actually forgot. I don't know if I forgot or I just didn't know he was in this movie. So all of a sudden he shows up in this movie, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's in this, and he's a freaking badass. Except for the way he goes out, that kind of sucks. So people get it. Yes, people start getting in the comments. If you do like this, folks, give us a like and definitely subscribe to us on the YouTube so you can get updates whenever we go live. For example, like we're doing the Cobra Kai special tomorrow, and then Rob and I will be back every Monday for shenanigans like this. So Rob, Lethal Weapon 87 versus Roadhouse. Who you feeling? Who you feeling? Or you want to talk about them a little bit?
No, I'm all good for a conversation, but just with the understanding that Lethal Weapon is definitely progressing. Okay, listen. I am
Scott's with you. He says he loves Roadhouse, but no way is it better than Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, listen. Roadhouse would beat out a number of the movies that we have on this bracket. That's just the reality. It would beat out. I think Roadhouse versus Beverly Hills Cop 2 has been a really interesting match off, because I think that you could almost make a decent argument for why Roadhouse would best Beverly Hills Cop 2. It's a bit of a different action movie. It's not as grandiose. Roadhouse is not. It takes place in a small town. Really, the Roadhouse bar, well, it's not called the Roadhouse bar, but the bar. Great cameo by Jeff Healey and the Jeff Healey band. Doing their song from behind the chicken wire.
Yeah, they're fenced in.
Patrick Swayze, again, at the height of his popularity. It's interesting. I kind of put this movie in the same category as I do Point Break. Completely different movies, but Point Break is where you had Keanu kind of at that height at that time of his popularity, coming off the Speed and everything else. So I felt like Roadhouse and Point Break almost have like an intertwined DNA that connects them. They are both fun movies to watch. Sam Neill, as you said, is amazing. I mean, listen, he was in 2 years ago in Bradley Cooper's A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga. Yeah, he was in that movie, and he's got that voice. I'm not even going to try to mimic the voice. He's got the voice,
the gravelly voice.
His gravitas on screen is just like, you're just mesmerized. You just want to sit there and just like, read me something, sir, because I am completely enamored with your entire presence. Roadhouse is a good movie.
Yeah. So my thoughts on Roadhouse, it is great, fantastic fun. Patrick Swayze is an amazing form. It's a cool concept that he's like this club fixer, and they kind of bring him in to clean up and turn this whole bar around. But it really does kind of, I want to say, like the 2/3 of the way or whatever, it really kind of starts to fall apart. It doesn't kind of keep. It doesn't kind of keep. It was kind of really kind of tight and fun, and then there's like he's fighting in front of monster trucks and doing all kinds of stuff, and then it starts to get really crazy, and then the ending is just so ridiculously over the top that you're like, oh my god. But shout outs to I forgot. I think we've mentioned it before. The crazy sex kind of nudity that shows up in some of these old 80s movies. It's definitely, I feel like it's not in a lot of these ones that are actually on our list right now.
Maybe those were more prevalent in comedies. But those were really prevalent in comedies, right? The 80s comedies like Porky's and all that stuff, Revenge of the Nerds, like, that nudity button was being hit all the time on those movies. It does appear in some of these action movies like Tango and Cash and whatnot, but yeah, it's definitely a different.
Is this a thing? Tim just mentioned a Roadhouse reboot with Ronda Rousey. If that's a thing, that's hilarious, and I kind of want to see it, kind of don't want to see it. I don't know if anyone has any information on that.
I think it died out when Ronda Rousey's star plummeted pretty significantly.
Yeah, Scott mentions there's a bunch of muscle. Yeah, Roadhouse actually did have a really good cast of cars. I don't remember. Patrick Swayze seems to obtain just random cars and has cars in lockup and all that. So like his character, I think could have been something that was could have been expanded on, and things like that. So let's let Rob talk about Lethal Weapon. So Lethal Weapon, is it directed by Richard Donner?
It is. Yeah. So it's script by
Shane Black.
Yeah.
Did you know that Christopher Reeve was considered for the part of Mel Gibson?
I had read that, but I was like, I couldn't, like, first of all, then that it would be Lethal Weapon and there would be no more. There'd be no more movies, because I can't imagine he would not. Have you ever watched that movie called was it A Moment in Time or a Piece in Time or Unravel in Time or whatever? Anyways, he travels back. I think Jane Seymour is in it. And it's a love story and stuff like that. And he travels back to like 1920s based on this photograph or A Moment in Time or whatever. And he's really good in that movie. That's kind of his wheelhouse. And Christopher Reeve, Superman aside, is not an action star. So but he would not do well in Lethal Weapon whatsoever. So written by Shane Black, directed by Richard Donner. Joel Silver's the producer. I mean, Joel Silver's producer of a great number of action movies.
I feel like most of the movies on this list. I think he's on Die Hard as well.
Yes, he is. It is a. I have a great affinity for Lethal Weapon. I think that that movie in and of itself is pure action. Again, we're back to the police stereotype. Yeah. Well, John has once, but we don't talk about that, Scott. We're back to the police action, the buddy cop. They really kind of perfected the buddy cop genre between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. The action with
chemistry was great between the two of them.
It was, and you had a really compelling backstory. No, the chair. You had a really compelling backstory with Riggs, Mel Gibson's character, losing his wife, and he's depressed around the holidays. Is a Shane Black staple. Around the holidays, depressed, contemplating suicide, different mental illness issues, and he finds a literal and figurative home with Danny Glover and his family. But Danny Glover's family are another a set of individuals that help propel this movie as well. Like everybody on this movie brought their A game and added something that actually helped create an entire, 4 movies, right? And potentially a 5th now. But they made this. If it wasn't for the chemistry of these two actors and the director and making this world building, you wouldn't have a Lethal Weapon 2, 3, and 4. And all of those movies are solid action movies. It's just solid movies on general. We'll talk next week about Lethal Weapon 2 and my thoughts on that movie. I just finished watching it yesterday. But you got to give Lethal Weapon its dues. It is fun. It is gritty. It is a lot more serious than it is funny, whereas that's not quite what you get with Lethal Weapon 2. I think Fraser said Lethal Weapon is better, but it doesn't win against Die Hard, and I would actually probably have a decent argument as to why it does. I think, as an aside, John, Die Hard gets a lot of love because everybody watches it at Christmas. Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie too.
Die Hard is very strong. We'll really get into it for next week. But Die Hard, you don't just have to deal with John McClane. You have to deal with Hans Gruber, who is probably one of the greatest portrayals of a villain in a movie ever. That's why I'm concerned. If Commando can make it, it's Freddie Mercury versus Hans Gruber. I don't think he's going to win that fight. Despite how much I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if your Lethal Weapon takes out Die Hard, then Commando has a better chance. But I think we're pretty much in agreement. Let's talk a little bit about the TV show. I think we've talked about this a couple times randomly when we used to do our IG videos. And the TV show, it did have Damian Wayans in it, and I forgot what the guy who played Riggs in it, who had some kind of controversial. He had some controversy around him, but he was actually a very good Riggs. But the chemistry of Gibson and Glover, it shows that you can't just buy that chemistry. Like, for some reason, Damian Wayans and this new guy didn't gel, and then they rebooted the show when that guy left and brought in
Sean William Scott.
I want to say Stifler, Sean William Scott, and then again it still didn't work. And then the show is now canceled, and they've tried to duplicate this buddy chemistry. And I think the only one that comes to mind quickly is Rush Hour, Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. Yeah. A lot of times they try to force it, but Lethal Weapon is, I want to say it's the originator, or it at least perfected the genre of buddy cop movies, which is one of my favorite all times, like Bad Boys, that type of stuff.
So the guy's name was Clayne Crawford. Clayne is the actor.
Yeah, Clayne Crawford. He was actually really good. Like, I don't know, like I heard the things allegedly toxic
work
events on set and stuff like that. So who's to know that? But he actually did play a really good Riggs, and the action on the show was actually pretty good. So let's jump in the comments. I see a lot of Lethal Weapon talk. So Look, Tim's in here. Look, it's nice to have Tim on here for once. Look at this. Lethal Weapon TV show was amazing. I actually did quite enjoy it, even though their chemistry wasn't there. I don't know if it could have gotten there, or if
I actually never watched.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, or if the issues with this Chase Crawford guy were what was causing the rift. But the action was it was almost like a 90s action movie every episode.
I saw the first episode and it was okay. I have just a big affinity for the Lethal Weapon series, because and one of the arguments I'll make against why it should be Die Hard is that Die Hard 1 is a great movie. Die Hard 2 is the exact same movie as Die Hard 1. Like, it didn't change anything, whereas Lethal Weapon evolved in its movies and added things into each movie to make it more compelling for you to watch. Lethal Weapon is just it's just phenomenal. The fact that they want to bring in number 5, though, I'll be very honest with you, really upsets me. It does. Richard Donner, listen, man, this is the guy that directed Goonies, directed Superman, the Lethal Weapon series. He's 90.
Yeah.
Just relax, man.
Yeah. So we've actually got a couple people chiming in that says the last season of Lethal Weapon with Stifler, Sean William Scott was actually pretty good. So I'm actually going to dust it off. And I was actually hoping that they were going to continue without Damian Wayans and let like this whole new kind of crew take over, Sean William Scott, and maybe find him a fun partner to kind of
Chow Young Fat to Bulletproof. Bulletproof Monk.
Chow Yun Fat and Mark Wahlberg. Look at the Corruptor. Look at that. That's another great cop movie.
I'm feeling the fact that I think Lethal Weapon is going to overtake Roadhouse in advance to this. I think we're finding ourselves at a Die Hard Lethal Weapon face-off in round 2.
Yeah, Tim mentions Damian Wayans. He liked Damian Wayans. I love Damian Wayans, but I feel like the chemistry wasn't quite there. I don't know. Maybe maybe Damian Wayans was just too good for TV. I don't know. So let me go back to the brackets, and I'm actually going to move Lethal Weapon, and we'll do a summary, and anyone else get into the comments of anything else you guys want to talk about before we roll out. So we're going to move on. Lethal Weapon. So we're on round 2, which we'll talk about next week. So Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon. That's crazy. Commando versus Bloodsport. I know who I got in this one. Although 2 of those guys, my heroes. Beverly Hills Cop versus Beverly Hills Cop 2, which is pretty interesting, but I'm pretty sure I know who's coming out on that one. Lethal Weapon 2 and Above the Law. That's going to be interesting. But I'm pretty sure I think we know what's coming out on top. But I do actually want to watch Above the Law again.
Yeah, so I just saw it about a year and a bit ago, and I was actually just watching it, resumed it again. While I was waiting for you, I had on my iPad, I was watching it before the show started. I quite enjoy Above the Law. It is a great action movie. Take his face off.
Not jumping ahead a decade. He's mentioning Face Off. I don't know if we mentioned Face Off, but man, 90s is gonna be crazy. I feel like we're gonna have to, if we do this again, if you guys want to do this, if you want to, we could probably do a whole season of this show on just 90s movies.
But I thought
it was gonna be 80s. I realized that 90s are actually kind of the bread and butter.
We'd have to break it up. We might have to do like 90 to 93, 94 to 96, 97, 99, and then have those 3 winners face off, because it's crazy. The amount of action movies are part of the 90s.
So Scott jumped in with a comment. He says whoever wins the Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon matchup is going to win this. I think he's pretty close. It's going to be tough. I do like Beverly Hills Cop is probably in my top 3 or 5 movies of all time, but as a representative, Beverly Hills Cop 1, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. I've probably seen it like the most. I don't know if it's surpassed my amount of watches of Commando, though. I did watch the hell a lot of Commando back in the day. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Bloodsport, damn, there's like 3 of these movies that I've definitely. But I have to respect these Lethal Weapons, because this is a genre that is like my go-to, like the buddy cop.
Yeah, and so again, because I'm fresh off of watching Lethal Weapon 2, I just saw Lethal Weapon 1 over the holidays. Like I said that last week. I just finished Lethal Weapon 2 yesterday. Man, it's going to be very tough for me because Lethal Weapon 2, I actually sent him a message to Scott and I showed him a clip from the movie. And it's just, we talk about comedy. We talk about comedy in Beverly Hills Cop 2, and Lethal Weapon 2 definitely differentiates itself from the first movie by infusing a lot more comedy into it. Interestingly enough, I actually did a bit of a deep dive on that, and we'll talk about that next week as to why that is. But Lethal Weapon 2 is a solid action movie, but I'm a big fan of this Above the Law. So I'm this is like Sophie's Choice. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna
do. Oh man. Okay, so we'll leave that at that. Yeah, keep the comments going, folks. Well, I guess we maybe got another 10 minutes or so, Rob, if we got anything else we want to cover. So we still are gonna do the sister bracket to this and potentially have a sci-fi fantasy movie that will face off against the winner. And that category potentially has a lot of killers in it. Predators and aliens, and like I don't know if we're gonna include like Blade Runners and all that kind of stuff. Like it's kind of nuts. What's on the other side of the bracket?
Well, it is interesting, right? When you do take a look at these movies, like these these 80s action movies, at how like just the swath of different you have these cop movies and you have the couple of the war movies, right? Missing in Action, the Rambo, but a lot of them is police officers going against the law to do their own thing, which is an interesting idea in today's day and age, which is the problems that you see a lot. And I can't help when I'm watching these movies to wonder, like, did that fuel people's perception of what it meant to be a police officer back then? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can get philosophical and we can go crazy on that, but it is interesting, watching a lot of these action movies from the 80s do deal with police officers taking the law and the matters into their own hand and acting outside of the law. And then you've got these crazy, amazing sci-fi based action movies like The Predator and RoboCop, and even They Live, which is a bit of a horror sci-fi action to it, right? Yeah, the 80s were crazy. The 80s were just crazy.
Yeah, not as crazy as the potential 90s coming up.
Right.
Again,
Scott
folks,
had to go. Scott, you got a meeting tonight, so sorry you have to leave, but thanks for joining us, bud.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. It's fun to have this many people in the chat as always. I don't know if we want to say anything else about this. Like all of these, I feel like Die Hard I've watched recently, Lethal Weapon I've watched recently, Commando Bloodsport I know like the back of my hand, Beverly Hills Cop 2 I just rewatched. So I think the only thing I'm gonna have to watch is Lethal Weapon 2 and Above the Law.
It's funny, I don't have the Beverly Hills Cop movies anymore. I don't know how
Beverly Hills Cop 1 I believe is either on Prime or Netflix. Beverly Hills Cop 2 you do have to either rent or pay for. It might be on Super Channel. But I don't think anyone has that extension on their Amazon account or whatever.
Well, yeah. So listen, I don't mind, picking up these trilogies, right? It just irritates me. Like I'm looking at it now, and it's $35. Like 2 weeks ago, it was like $12.99. I should have just picked it up when it was $12.99 because I really despise Beverly Hills Cop 3. It's an atrocious abomination of a movie.
I used to really like it. I know it's bad, but I used to really like it when I was a kid. I actually owned it on Laserdisc. I got to go get my mom my Laserdisc from my mom's place, just so you guys can see that I'm not making this crap up. But I think we should
as well. I don't have Bloodsport, and that is, again. So I'm obviously looking through Apple iTunes, but I know that it's on Amazon Prime purchase movie or through Amazon and through Google Play. But again, it's $15. I guess the problem that I have though, John, is that I just bought Black Rain and it didn't live up to it wasn't as great as I remember it. And now I'm like, fuck, man, now I'm out $10. Do I really want to be out $15 for Bloodsport of what I remember it being a great movie and I watched a lot? But if I can't trust my own memory, then what the hell?
I think it's hard. Depends on how long ago you've seen. But I think our main issue is going to be this Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2 versus Above the Law. Although I feel like Lethal Weapon 2 is going to come out on top. Beverly Hills Cop 2. I can pretty much decide that in Commando versus Bloodsport. I've got that one if you want to save $10. And then if anyone else wants to get in on that. But the Die Hard Lethal Weapon, that's gonna be tough. I don't know if we're even gonna be able to come to a decision at the end of next episode.
Well,
we'll talk about that'll be the end of the episode. So the end of the episode, we'll do the Die Hard Lethal Weapon debate. Man, that's tough.
People need to rewatch both of those movies if they haven't seen them recently. And I'm sure though, most people on here have just watched Die Hard within the last 3 to 4 weeks, right? And that's where I think it does. Hey, Michelle, we missed you last week. That's where I think Die Hard has an advantage, that people's repetitious watching of that every year. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily a great movie. It's a great action movie, but it doesn't mean it's the top action movie of the 80s. Unfortunately, if you keep watching the same thing over and over and over again, you're just going to convince yourself that it's the best movie ever.
I am in favor of this list being different than everything we've seen online. So if people feel that Lethal Weapon can edge out Die Hard, I mean, not Die Hard. Yeah, Die Hard. I said that right. But yeah, again, shout out to Michelle, who says she's only seen Die Hard and Beverly Hills Cop, which are probably 2 of the best movies in this list right now. And she's holding up for the sci-fi bracket, which I think I think we didn't realize when we started doing this, how much of those movies would end up on that side, and that how many more people have seen those, like the RoboCops, the Aliens, or Alien, and
no, Aliens. Alien was 79. Aliens was 80.
Really? Aliens is 70. Alien is 79.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's crazy. I did not know.
I'm gonna have to double check. But yeah, I'm fairly certain that Alien is 79. Alien.
Yeah, Jonathan Yo mentions that Lethal Weapon versus Die Hard might come down to the villains, which is going to be tough.
That's a very good point. Yeah,
who's the villain in Lethal Weapon 1? Is it Nick Nolte? Or is it is it Gary Busey, right?
It is. Well, yeah, he plays Mr. Joshua. Yeah,
he's like the second in command, like the badass, right?
His boss is the overall main villain.
Yeah. But Die Hard, you have Hans Gruber, probably one of the ultimate villains. I actually feel like he should be on the pictures when people put like Darth Vader, Skeletor, and then it should be like Hans Gruber. That'd be a funny ass picture.
But you have 2 compelling characters in Die Hard where they're facing off against each other, whereas in Lethal Weapon they're working together, even though there is some friction. Just a clarification: Alien was 1979. Aliens is 1986. I thought it was 83. It's 86. Yeah, so Alien, the first movie is Alien is 79. So in 1966, Tim was 16. I'm not really sure why we need to know your age.
He's a young man, a young lad.
So yeah, there we are, John. I mean, I'm happy with where this bracket is going. I am a bit nervous about those two. How we're going to pare it down to the next to the round 3, the semifinals, because Beverly Hills Cop against its sequel. That's gonna be a tough one.
Man, yeah. I don't think so. I think the first one is clearly better. So I think we will actually be able to resolve this bracket next week, unless we really get into it for this Die Hard Lethal Weapon. But yeah, that's tough. It's gonna be crazy. But Lethal Weapon, maybe an underdog. Maybe can take the belt. Take the belt.
It doesn't have the advantage of being a yearly ritual to be watched. It's like a lot of people like the movie.
It potentially has 2 shots. So if Lethal Weapon 1 does get eliminated and Lethal Weapon 2 makes it, it potentially could either get defeated twice, or you can have a second chance win. But yeah, I think that's good, unless anyone wants to jump in on the chat if we want any last words or things like that. Last week, so we had some troubles with the stream, so I wanted to shout out a couple things. So the Sidekick Show is now on its separate podcast stream to just kind of like clean up the flow of things. So you can follow the Sidekick Show on iTunes and Spotify. We're now on iTunes. Links will be in the bottom of the bottom of this video if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And what else? Please subscribe to the YouTube so you can get notifications whenever we go live and have episodes that are not on the schedule. So me and Rob are here every Monday if you're tuning in for the first time or you're tuning in late. Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are here, and we've added a couple other new kind of shows to the mix. So tomorrow, if you're available, we're doing it again. Me, Tim, my brother Chris, and my old buddy Duncan. We're doing Cobra Kai season 3 wrap up with the tier list, and then we hope to do a whole bunch of other things to follow. Bunch of other fun things, like some of the CW shows have started to air. Batwoman did air yesterday, the 17th. I did watch it. I've got thoughts on it. And Superman, Lois and Clark. Is it called Lois and Clark, or is it called Superman and Lois?
Superman and Lois. So I think the next is Black Lightning, and that comes up February I want to say the 8th, and then later in February is Flash and Superman and Lois. So we've got about a month until the rest of the CW shows start dropping.
Yeah, so if you guys want to hear about that and follow that, and then I think you can actually leave us a message now via, if you listen to us on the stream, the podcast streams, there is a link on the Spotify, their iTunes, for you to leave us a voice message if you want to tell us how wrong we are, how right we are, or if you've got ideas for other podcasts, and we can actually play that clip at the beginning or the end of a show for funsies. So have at it, folks. Rob Gaudette, you can follow Rob on Rob Gaudette, Gaudette.
There you go. There's only one E at the end. What am I, a manatee? No.
on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow my antics on Instagram, jho.heroesworld. Hopefully less technical issues. Starting tomorrow would be nice. But hopefully next week. I don't know why a network card would just fail all of a sudden. Any other parting thoughts? Rob,
No, I'm just thanks everybody. It's been a blast. We hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. I think that nostalgia drug, we've said this before, we said it with the worst comic book movies, the nostalgia drug is high. It's a definite factor, and it's really letting us see things in a whole new light, whether you're watching a movie 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, or in Tim's case 47 years. I'm very, as much as I'm excited for this, and I gotta tell you, John, the 90s I'm really getting geared up for what's going to be coming up in the 90s.
The 90s is potentially cool. So especially if people want to do it, I'm pretty sure it's inevitable that we do it. But we break it up in the middle with something more modern to see if
sure
we can run through things faster, because we don't have to rely on our memory and
yeah. But thank you so much for everybody that's been commenting. Even if you're not commenting tonight, you've taken the time to go on to the Heroes World Facebook page or on John's Facebook stuff and to comment and just want to say thanks. Really appreciate it.
All right.
That's it.
And we're gonna, if you're on Spotify, I have the ability to play some music. So if I can't find the Bloodsport Kumite song, I'm gonna play us out with Axel F from Beverly Hills Cop. And then we'll hit you guys with our actual very cool intro outro music from Killian Andrew, which is linked in our YouTube trailer. So thank you very much, folks.
Thanks,
we will catch you tomorrow if you're free for some Cobra Kai action. If not, next week and Wednesday and Sunday sometime. Our podcast is all over the place now, but either Wednesday or Sunday, depending on. I think Sundays is going to happen now. But thank you very much, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.